people really admire somebody doing something, and that's
Yeah.
what's missing. It's not even the bravery or the self-effacing nature of releasing stuff that's imperfect. It's just being seen to do something. It's like an umbrella people want to come and stand under, like, oh great, something's fucking no,
Yeah.
this is the spot to be. And I whenever I collaborate with people, I'm looking for that, for somebody fucking doing something, Actually, no, that's not necessarily hard and fast. I would say that equally, I look for people who are really talented who aren't doing anything, because it's like a beautiful ship in the harbor,
Yeah, right.
Right?
Hasn't had the bottle of champagne against the hull just yet, but it's ready to fly.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. But I suppose,
Well, I think
I mean, I've certainly had I don't know if it's a unique path in this thing. But it's certainly one that I could have done better, and I know now how I could have done it better. So I suppose for anybody who's listening to the podcast who is looking to go the path of making their own thing, here's some things that might make it a little bit easier. I'm not an animator. I don't know how to animate. I haven't really drawn anything properly since I was a teenager. I found people who were talented, and I just sold them on the idea of the thing that I was making because I really believed in it. If you tell a story, you'll put yourself into it without meaning to. And even if you try not to, you'll just do that extra hard somehow. All the characters are going to be little fragments of you. All of their problems are going to be weird analogs of the things in your own life, because you only write what you understand. Mm-hmm. If you start writing, I don't know, you pick a female character that maybe you haven't interacted with before, and you're just plumbing your memory of television and movies and books. But if you can move that character over to somebody in your own life, a relative or a friend, suddenly they become very, very easy to write. And so the more personal the thing feels to you, the more anima you'll have to get the thing fucking done, the more mental voltage you'll have to weather how much it's going to fail before it gets to where it's going. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's just cost and avoiding ridiculous spends, and that's money and time. For the pilot, when we made it, I hired people out of university, which really helped. And it was a wonderful cast. People that I had come in to work on it. There was Andy Stevens, who was an animator, Mateusz Borkowski, who's a shit hot compositor. We were managed, and there's a better word for that in the industry, and I can't remember, produced.
It's a better word for that. What do they do?
And it came out really well as a result. We partnered with a local university, and they allowed us to use their resources, all of their computer setup and ridiculous amount of software and storage that they had, in exchange for our animators teaching a class during the summer and teaching people how to use the software that we were using. There were workarounds to get there. The actors who I found for it were either volunteering their time or they were quite new to animation. And you can get that to work so long as you listen to enough auditions. There's no shortage of actors out there, but if you listen to enough of them, you'll find one that really works. One thing that Rick and Morty got really, really right is that every fucking voice actor in it is just stellar. And it shows that Justin Roiland is sort of co-directing the thing because he's a voice actor and he knows that it's lilt, it's intonation, it's delivery. You can make something that's not funny very, very funny just by the way that you say it in a certain situation. And
sure.
That tracks to these shows. Yeah, I suppose knowing the thing, knowing the audio, because audio is half of what's happening when you're watching an episode of something. You don't think about it really when you get into it. Oh, is my audio quality need to be really good? Are the sound effects need to be unique? Is there going to have to be short gaps between different characters speaking so that it feels interesting, because there's so little visual information when you're looking at blank drawn faces, all of these things you have to keep in mind. It's the pacing, it's the music, it's the sound effects, it's the fucking, the structure of the thing. It's giving people a rest between acts to really feel like they're processing what's happening and that they've got breathing space, and it's the color and the line quality, all of these things together because you will be judged on your lowest point and not your highest point. And it doesn't matter how cool you've done something. It's the fucking shit audio, or that you used, I don't know, Comic Sans as the font or something. And it's tough. You have to, like, for a while I was out of love with the project, and that will happen when the world disappoints you, not the project. When the world disappoints you enough in not accepting this child, and that does happen, and you have to be ready for that as well. It sucks a lot of the time. It's just such a fucking struggle, and you wonder why the hell you're doing it, and you have to remind yourself periodically why you're doing it, and it's because you love it. You fucking there are these moments when you're writing, or these moments in the studio where everything just seems to line up perfectly, or these moments, and that's what you're doing it for. It's so easy to forget, but it's the only thing that's going to keep a carrot dangling in front of your face until you actually get somewhere, you know?
Yeah. It's very much of a relationship. What you just described as a relationship. And you've been in a 10-year committed relationship. And there's going to be highs and lows with that. Right?
I think what you also said something that was really interesting, is just like how much passion you have, it will help you weather to how many times it's going to fail before it succeeds. And I think that's true with everything. It's going to fail. One of my mentors said, when for screenwriting, like actually submitting into screenwriting competition, she was like, I want to get rejected 100 times. I got close, but I never got rejected 100 times. She's like, I got to 66 times submitting to different scripts, just getting rejected, but I've never gotten to 100 times, and I just want to get to 100 times of getting rejected. And I think that's interesting, even from her perspective as a working writer. She's like, yeah, I get rejected all the time. It's nothing, because the industry is very subjective. Also, it's gonna happen. Not everybody's. I remember the first time I was at ITV Fest. I had the Jacob Kruger studio had this little pitch party, and so I was pitching the script to everyone, and I got a lot of good reviews from my pitch. And then we went to the main party for, the awards ceremony, and not everyone that was important went into their awards, and I wasn't going to get an award, so I just stayed back in the cocktail area with all the other people. And I asked this one lady, because she was a producer, I was like, could you can I pitch for you, because I was just learning this whole thing. She's like, oh yeah, I guess, go ahead. And so I started my pitch, and she's like, can I stop you right there? And she just started to talk about all these things that's like I already knew. And she was talking about like how your villain has to be dynamic. He can't just be a villain. I'm like, what do you, like, I don't know that. Like, I'm here and I don't know that. Like, you think I'm going to have the twirling mustache villain? I'm like, no, I have a very complex idea for that man who is the villain in this. Like, I mean, to tell me that your villain has to be sort of, or your antagonist has to be sympathetic is like, it's like, so yeah, you're going to get a bunch of yahoos. You're going to get failures. Like, that was a failure on my part, even walking up to her. I knew from her body language she wasn't going to give me the time of day, but I went up and tried. And, you're going to get... And then this other guy said to me, he's like, I'm like, hey, can I pitch for you? I just learned how to do it. And he's like, honestly, I have too many more important things than to listen to your... I'm like, whoa, all right, okay. But you know what? You're going to meet good people that really want to hear what you have to say. Like, I met this one guy. He took me aside, sat with me, and he just said, hey, these are the things that I think you should touch on. Mm-hmm. I'm not looking for this kind of project, but these are some things that you might want to think about when you're pitching to someone. And I was like, thank you so much for taking your time to, teach me and guide me, You're going to fail. It's inevitable. And if you love it, you're going to grind it, As entrepreneurs, we fail all the time, And you know what? If you're okay with the fact that you're gonna fail, then you're gonna win too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are certain, like, it's almost psychopathic the way that you have to continuously do the thing. It's just like, no, I deserve this. Like, because it doesn't make sense. It's just like, well, I did it and I failed. Time to do it again. Like, you can do that a few times, but 100, yeah, it feels like pushing it a little bit. Because I had, when you're starting out, you're full of confidence and you have no idea how much you suck or why. Right? Like, I fucking sucked. I still suck now, is my own opinion, but I'm starting to notice the ways. So I'm like leaning that way, like, okay, well, I'll just, workshop that. But you don't know if you've written something and it's your first project, it sucks. That sucks. I'm sorry. Whoever you are, that sucks. The thing you've made, it sucks. It's awful. You've made something awful and you've birthed it into the world and it's a nightmare and nobody should look at it. But you did create it. And that's important, because next you make another one. And it totally sounds like you're saying it sounds insane, but you just keep doing it and you keep releasing them and you keep showing people and you keep talking about it. You keep saving up and working and planning. And sometimes you take a 2-year break, as I have the last 2 years, and you're not working on your own thing anymore. You're doing work for other people's stories, and it's not as satisfying, but it's really, really good experience. That's off topic. I'm just wondering now. But yeah, it's, you just have to, I mean, I'm quite like negative about it, really. I'm like, you have to really hate your work. You have to just absolutely hate your work into shape. You make it, and then on your second reading, none of the jokes will be funny anymore, but they'll be like a little funny. And then the third reading, they'll completely stop being funny. And you can only keep the jokes in that are going to be funny still on the fifth reading, and you're excited for people to see them, So you turf that bit out. And it's like, actually, this relates to the whole social media posting thing. It's like making something every day. But and this is a line from the anime One Punch Man, every blow of your combo must be delivered with the intent to kill. Every fucking thing you do has to be like fucking, and you focus and you put the work in and you make it, it's just like, well, not everything you make can be good. And it's like, that's true, but you should never release one unless you think it is.
Sure.
People will, I've had people who have refused to watch the pilot because they saw a black and white animatic and they were like, nah, whatever. You sometimes you do have a first impression to make. I don't know. I don't know. The industry holds all the cards. They have all the resources. They have all the talent. It's like an advertising agency, and you're like making modern art, and then you look at some ad for an app and it's like gorgeous, and the way that everything is, the way all the lines work together, and it has this depth to it and it feels harmonic. And it's because never in the history of art has so much resources been used up by these, corporate entities who just fucking funnel it that way. So we're fighting against this massive thing, and people are so fed, they're like, they've been fed on such a rich diet of perfect shit that when you make something and it has these frayed bits, those frayed bits have to be really charming, otherwise they're going to turn off, right? Like, it has to have the warmth of floor rather than the appearance of a broken car. Like,
yeah.